Hello, my name is Jeremy, just your average everyday guy. That is until sometime in my early 30s, I developed a spinal condition known as ankylosing spondylitis. It took me from this, 6 foot tall, to this, not 6 foot tall. But I wasn't going to let that get me down forever, so eventually I kicked some bad habits and started fighting back. I still get some pretty strange looks, but I'm now doing what I love, traveling and adventuring. My goal is to show other people with disabilities or anyone facing challenges that your best days don't have to be behind you and that there's always hope. So thanks for joining me, the Handicapped Hiker.
On the last episode, I wrapped up another road trip with stops at the Mississippi River headwaters, the North Shore of Lake Superior, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. After a week at home, adjusting to normal everyday life, it's time to head to Maine for some redemption as well as another massive challenge. Here we are at Acadia National Park near Bar Harbor, Maine. Acadia was proposed to be our first national park east of the Mississippi River, which it is, but isn't. You see, after Yellowstone became our first national park in 1872, our second national park became Mackinac Island near the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But that park was decommissioned and handed over to the state in 1895, becoming Michigan's first state park. Acadia started out as Sieur de Mont's National Monument in 1916, then Lafayette National Park in 1919, and finally Acadia National Park in 1929. So technically, you could say Mackinac Island was the first national park east of the Mississippi, or you could say Acadia or Lafayette, and you would be correct either way, and wrong either way. Confused? Good, let's move along. My first hike here in Acadia is one that's been haunting me for an entire year. You may remember I visited this park back in episode 30, and I was unable to get past the Eliminator to complete the Precipice Trail. When I fail to complete a hike, it goes on a list that I call revenge hikes. Over the past year, in addition to my usual training, I worked on my upper body strength with this trail in mind. And this trail, the Precipice Trail, is no joke. It's one of the scariest, most dangerous, and notorious trails in the country. Although it's only 3/4 of a mile up to the summit, it's a highly strenuous, near-vertical ascent with a large boulder field, many narrow ledges, ladders, and iron rungs embedded into the cliff face. There have been many deaths, even in recent years, as well as frequent injuries and rescues. But to do this trail, you first have to get past the Eliminator. If you're unable to get yourself up and over this first obstacle, like I couldn't last time I was here, then you shouldn't go any further, because it doesn't get any easier. And I made it. I can't tell you how good that felt, but I was still pretty nervous about what was ahead.
Well, here's our first bars.
This junction is called the point of no return. With the Precipice Trail being a one-way route, this is your last chance to bail out and take one of these longer side routes.
Boy, on some of these things you just have to throw your body and hope it lands. Going up. Oh boy. Okay. It's getting harder to lift my legs. Nah, I'll get it. There we go. Okay. Okay. Wow. Holy moly. Make sure when you're halfway up, you turn around and look. Just hang on for dear life up here.
It is absolutely thrilling, and the views are incredible. But I have to admit, there were a couple of times I caught my knees shaking a bit, and I've been up Angel's Landing in Zion, along with many other scary hikes, including Beehive here in Acadia.
I think I went the low way. I'm supposed to go up here. Okay. Terrifyingly awesome. Holy cow. I honestly don't know how I'm doing some of these things. Oh. It just keeps going. There's the marker. Boom. Made it.
And that is another revenge hike completed. It feels great to finally be at the summit of Champlain Mountain, but the trail back down is no piece of cake either. Not as hard as the route up, but still pretty rugged and longer at 1.4 miles.
Is that a mirage? Nope. It's the parking lot. Thank God. I'm ready for ice cream.
What a great trail, and what a feeling of accomplishment and redemption. But now, it's time to head about 3 hours north and get rested up for something huge in the morning. Still on a high from yesterday's triumph, today begins in Baxter State Park, with my sights set on something that in reality may be out of reach.
Look how clear that water is.
Mount Katahdin is a cluster of peaks deeply isolated in the north woods of Maine. Baxter Peak, at 5,267 feet, is the highest point on Katahdin and is most known for being the northern end of the world-famous 2,200-mile-long Appalachian Trail. We made the decision to camp at Roaring Brook and summit Pamola Peak first via the Helon Trail, at which point we'll cross a sharp ridge known as the Knife's Edge to Baxter Peak, then down the Saddle Trail to Chimney Pond Trail. But let's just concentrate on reaching Pamola Peak first, with a 3.1-mile climb up to 4,900 feet in elevation. This trail is extremely rugged, rocky, and steep. There were many places where I had to claw, scratch, and drag myself up large boulders and vertical rock face. Success! Pamola Peak. But it doesn't take long to remember the hardest part is next, and there isn't much time to rest if we want to make it back before dark. The Knife's Edge is a very strenuous 1.1-mile trail across a steep, rocky, sharp ridge like nothing I've ever seen before. It's a Class 2 to 3 scramble, which means it's just shy of requiring ropes and harnesses. But the hardest part about scrambling this ridge is the extreme exposure and 2,000-foot drop on both sides. We started at the most difficult end. I was able to make the Class 3 scramble down into the crevice known as the Chimney, but that is where my luck ran out, and I was physically unable to make it back up the other side towards Baxter Peak. What stopped me was a section of rock about the size of a refrigerator. I just couldn't pull myself up to the top of this rock, especially knowing there wasn't anywhere safe to land if I fell. To make matters worse, I could barely make it back up the side we descended, and I very, very nearly needed a rescue out of the chimney. My two nephews were able to continue and make it to Baxter Peak, but I was forced to turn back and make the long walk of shame back down to the campground. Looking back on it, reaching Pamola Peak was a great accomplishment in itself, but when I have my mind set on a goal and can't do it, there is no consoling me. I wanted this one really, really bad, and in my eyes, this hike was a failure. I still don't think I've gotten over this one, but I'm not crazy enough to put it on my list of revenge hikes. As hard as it is to admit, there are some things that I just cannot physically do like I used to, and I guess I'll just have to get used to it as I only get older. But I'll never stop trying for as many wins as possible. All in all, I did over 8 miles here on Mount Katahdin. We started at dawn, and I made it out right before dark, just in time for the 3-hour drive back to Acadia. Still pretty bummed about the Katahdin failure, I'm up early to take a solo hike around Jordan Pond. The Jordan Pond path is 3.5 miles full circle, and following the lakeshore, it's relatively flat, a welcomed change from yesterday. The north end of the lake features these two mountains known as the Bubbles. And the south end of the lake is where you'll find the Jordan Pond House. It has a gift shop and a restaurant famous for serving tea and popovers on the lawn. Jordan Pond is a natural glacial lake about 187 acres in size. Its deepest point is about 150 feet, and its crystal clear water is home to many plant and fish species. And finally, I hiked the Ocean Path Trail from Otter Point to the north. This trail follows along the scenic loop road with fantastic views of the ocean and access to the shoreline attractions. let's get this day started with a drive up Cadillac Mountain to catch the sunrise. This is often noted to be the first sight of the sunrise in the United States, but that's only true from October to March. For the rest of the year, the towns of Mars Hill and Lubec get the first sunrise. It's still pretty awesome to see it from the highest point on the Atlantic coast. With my fill of lobster and the colder weather looming, I headed back home to Northeast Ohio to prepare for winter and start planning the next road trip. But before spring could arrive, I did something big that I can't wait to share. So be sure to tune in for the next episode, and we'll see you then.